We on cable?
I'm going to ask cable.
Yeah, sounds good.
I guess they're working. All right,
Our mics are live.
Check,
All right.
check.
I'm going to give like a quick 30 seconds here to make sure that cable is ready, since I can't communicate with them. They're listening. So cable, Kelly, if you're listening, we're going to get started in just a minute here.
What's the phrase? Cauliflower?
Oh, yeah, usually we make it up as we go along. How about armadillo for today?
That sounds like
Armadillo.
works.
So, Kelly, the code word that we're ready to start the meeting is armadillo. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the September 24th, 2025 Planning Board meeting. My name is Jacob Cross. I'm the chair. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Please bear with us as we're not used to this setup, but hopefully the mics and everything works. We had a conservation meeting here last week, which actually went really well, so I'm hoping we can follow in their footsteps. Next to me is Matt Rounds, and next to him is Jack Gattinalla. Over there we have Roger Hohenberger, Payal Balaya, Derek Monson, and Greg Ballesteri are both here as our alternates tonight. Julie from staff is excused. She couldn't make it. And Tom Early and Alan Carpenter both are excused. They're both traveling and out of state and couldn't make it.
Do you want to seat them?
Yeah, so I think we can seat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, both of them. Yeah, so Greg and Derek are both seated for tonight if we have any votes. And normally we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not sure we have a flag.
Right over there.
Oh, we do. Okay, so let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, jumping right into the agenda, hopefully really quickly, we always start with announcements and liaison reports. Anybody have anything this week? Roger?
Yeah, I'd just like to state we got a letter from the Selectmen of Raymond. They're going to have a meeting on Monday, October 6th, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. at the Raymond High School cafeteria. They invited all dignitaries, including Kelly Ayotte, to come and talk about House Bill 631 and what it's going to do to the infrastructure of the towns. So they have some other towns that are interested besides themselves, but they're inviting any other town officials that want to come. So I'll throw it out to the planning board.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that we have other towns in the same situation as us. What was the time and date again?
It's 6:30, October 6th, at Raymond High School cafeteria.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right. So we've got two things to do tonight. One is bigger than the other. So the first thing we're going to do first, I suspect that's what most people are here to talk about, is the growth management ordinance. After that, we do have some other business that we have to do. Is we are going to talk about Tom's latest version of the hardship definition. We got feedback from the attorney on it, and if we want to move forward with it, we have to push it forward to a public hearing on October 15th, or rework it or decide what to do. So those are the two things. We're going to do the growth management ordinance first. Yeah, so Matt, why don't you take it away?
All right, so I was thinking maybe the best way to start this would, well, that is pretty good, Mike. It would be to just read the ordinance, frankly. It's 3 pages long. It's not that long. And then anyone who's listening in on cable or anyone in the audience can know the entirety of it. And then I guess we'll proceed as you want, whether you want to go through it line by line or however you want to do it, Mr. Chair. But I'm just going to read it to start. Temporary moratorium ordinance. The Windham Planning Board recommends the voters of Windham, New Hampshire, acting as the local legislative body, adopt the ordinance hereafter referred to as the temporary moratorium, establishing a moratorium on the issuance of building permits, the granting of subdivisions, and the granting of site plan approvals. The temporary moratorium is adopted under RSA 674:23 due to the unusual circumstances affecting the ability of Windham, New Hampshire to provide adequate services. These unusual circumstances require prompt attention and the development of a growth management process under RSA 674:22, which will include development of a growth management zoning ordinance, GMO, as well as any necessary alterations to the Windham Master Plan and/or capital improvements program. The circumstances giving rise to the need for the temporary moratorium are included in the appendix. The term of the temporary moratorium shall be for 1 year, 12 months. The temporary moratorium applies to the following types and categories of development: residential, commercial, industrial, land use. Temporary moratorium applies to all subdivision approvals and lot line adjustments. Temporary moratorium applies to all site plan approvals and building permits. Temporary moratorium applies to the entire municipality of Windham, New Hampshire. Exempt uses. The following types and categories have minimal or no impact on the circumstances giving rise to the moratorium and are exempt from the temporary moratorium: improvements to existing single-family and duplex residential units, porches, walkways, fences, swimming pools, solar panels, attached ADUs, etc. Structures used to moor vessels extending over the shoreline, docks. Fire and police stations, municipal administrative buildings, example, town hall. Libraries, schools and educational institutions, churches and places of worship. Parks, trails, public recreational facilities, conservation land improvements. Hospitals, medical facilities. Limited impact uses, conditionally exempt. Neighborhood scale dine-in restaurants, coffee shops, and personal service establishments are conditionally exempt if no establishment exceeds 5,000 square feet gross floor area. The combined total of such uses constructed or issued a certificate of occupancy during the moratorium does not exceed 12,000 square feet town-wide. No single applicant, landowner, developer, or affiliated entity, including those under common ownership or control, exceeds 5,000 square feet in total, and all proposals comply with DES septic design flow requirements and Wyndham's soil-based lot sizing standards. Special exception for owner-occupied single-family dwellings. The Zoning Board of Adjustment, ZBA, may grant a special exception to allow approval of a site plan and issuance of a building permit for a single-family dwelling if all the following conditions are met. The applicant is a natural person or a qualified personal resident trust, QPRT. If the applicant is a QPRT, all trustees of the trust will be considered applicants. Applicant has not received another special exception under this ordinance. Applicant is not acting on behalf of a developer, builder, trust, or business entity. The proposed dwelling will serve as the applicant's primary residence for a minimum of 1 year following issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The applicant shall submit a sworn affidavit attesting to this and with the special exception application. The lot was lawfully created and recorded prior to July 1st, 2025. The lot has not been subdivided, merged, or altered after July 1st, 2025. The lot and/or dwelling is not part of any pending or proposed subdivision or multi-unit site plan application. There is no affiliated development. The dwelling shall be limited to a single residential unit. As a conditional approval stating, ZBA must find the proposal does not materially impact the circumstances giving rise to the moratorium. ZBA must find that the proposal aligns with the intent of this ordinance to preserve community infrastructure capability. ZBA must find the applicant has not attempted to circumvent the ordinance's intent through indirect ownership or development. The total number of special exceptions granted under this ordinance shall not exceed 0.25% of the town's housing stock as of 2020 U.S. Census, 5,575 units, equivalent to a maximum of 14 dwellings during the term of the moratorium. Appendix. Planning Board findings. The circumstances giving rise to the need of the moratorium are as follows: capacity constraints of the local school system, capacity constraints of public safety and emergency response services, inadequate municipal infrastructure, existing zoning ordinance based on soils-based lot sizing, which has been rendered obsolete by recent RSAs, inability of existing tax base to support increased development at current public service levels. For the purposes of these findings, infrastructure includes schools, roads, public safety facilities, and shared water resources. Septic systems are properly constructed and regulated by DES and Wyndham's soil-based lot sizing standards and are therefore not considered a municipal burden. Private wells, however, draw from shared aquifers, and cumulative withdrawals from new development may affect community water capacity. Recommended course of action to correct and alleviate circumstances. Develop a growth management process under RSA 674:22. Develop growth management zoning ordinance, GMO. GMO to be introduced at expiration of temporary moratorium. Annual planning board review to update as necessary for a period of 5 years. Develop phased development ordinance to take effect at expiration of GMO. Modify Wyndham Master Plan as needed. Modify Capital Improvements Program, CIP, as needed.
All right, thanks, Matt. Sorry, I'll give it back to you in 1 second so we can get into it. I did, as you were reading that, I realized I should have probably done a better job setting the stage of kind of where we're at, first as far as tonight and how tonight's going to go, but also kind of where we are in the process. So first of all, this is our first time as a board reviewing this, right? We've all seen it because it was, sent out to the board, but we've never discussed this before tonight. It's our first time looking at this. This is the result of Matt's subcommittee that we formed, 9 months ago?
Yeah, I think it was either April or the very end of March.
Yeah, so 6 months ago, we put together a subcommittee. I really want to thank everybody in that subcommittee for all their hard work. It went through a few drafts with them, and they had been working on this for the past 6 months. And that's how it got to the point where it is tonight, and now we need to look at it, right? So the goal, if we're going to go forward to this, would be to put it on the ballot for the voters to vote on. It's it's similar to a zoning ordinance in that it needs to be approved by the voters at town meeting in March. And so the process for that traditionally starts around, end of September, where we are now. And we work on it, in workshops through October and November, and it has to be finalized sometime around December. So we're absolutely going to open it up to public comment tonight. We want to hear from folks, and I'll talk more about that when we do it. But for right now, let's get into it. Oh, and also, I wanted to thanks to Russ for helping us get this all set up here tonight and being able to have the meeting in this room that accommodates a lot of people. Thank you, Kelly from Cable, and thanks, Shannon, for all your help getting the logistics of this sorted out. So let's take it to the board. So we're up at the top, right? So why don't we go through this? I'm open to however you guys want to do it. We've gone through many documents many times. We're all kind of old hat at this now. You know how we are. We can spend an hour arguing about a semicolon, and sometimes it feels frustrating, but it's definitely necessary. Why don't we go through it as fast or as slow as you guys want? Why don't we take it from the top, and let's start small. Let's look at the first, couple paragraphs, like what's on the screen right now. And if folks want to raise their hands, we can, or we can just go down the line if you want to kick us off, Roger.
Yeah, I would just like to.
Sorry, what's that?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, we're not live on cable.
That stinks.
That would be problem since.
Let's
I
go
should
back to
read it
the
again.
Community Development Department. I think we have less than 40.
Yeah, we do have less than 40 people in here. It's ironic. Shannon, can you go ahead and text her? Thank you so much. Yeah, I apologize. There's not much we can do about it from here, but yeah, we'll see what we can do about that.
Maybe, Mr. Chair, while we're waiting, since obviously we don't want to get into the meat of it just yet, I guess I would say the subcommittee, just so everyone knows, was represented by myself as planning board, Roger Holmberger representing the Board of Selectmen, Shannon Ulrey representing the school board. We also had Wayne Morris on as conservation, and then we also had Michelle Stith contributing as well. So we had a very...
Kathleen.
Oh my God, how did I forget? And Kathleen DeFruscia, of course, the esteemed legal mind who was guiding us through the proper format of all this. So she was invaluable in making sure that we authored this in a correct legal format. So I think we're well ahead of the game when it comes to how this should be created. And one thing, just so the folks know at home know, or the folks in the audience know, is we crafted this essentially, I don't know if verbatim is the right word, but we crafted this to mirror RSA 67423. So all the various pieces that we talk about are to address everything in that RSA.
Yeah. All right, what do you guys think? How about this? How about we give cable a little bit of time? So why don't we switch gears? It should,
It's up.
It's up?
It's on the education channel.
Oh, because we're at the high school.
And that's where the confusion.
Question answered. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So
Tell 'em
we're on the
which channel.
educational channel because we're in the high school. That makes
Is it
sense.
21?
Can we switch it, or should we post
People
it?
will find it.
right,
No,
I'll
just
find it
tell them
after
what
the fact.
channel it is, though. I think it's channel 21, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Somebody posted on Wyndham Uncensored.
I think it's just the regular channel, but you just have to go to the educational. Shannon, can I request you also to update it on Facebook, just in case if people
Yep,
see that?
So Kelly said that she put it on Neighborly, but I'm gonna check,
Okay,
and then I'll make sure it's on the other pages.
thank you.
You know that other page. All right, good. So let's get into it. So looking at what's on the screen right now, first half of the first page, Roger.
Yeah, can I just, just really not to this document per se, but I just wanted to ask Matt if he can explain the genesis of this document and the fact that the committee went through, and yourself went through, many other towns' ordinances. to
Sure,
come up
absolutely.
with this.
So this is going to sound like a strange number, because I'm going to give two numbers. 22 or 23 other municipalities within New Hampshire have created growth management ordinances / temporary moratoriums. And the reason I'm saying 22 or 23 is that Amherst didn't actually create a growth management ordinance, but they created an ordinance that exactly mirrored it. And so the first thing that we did is we went and we looked at every single one that has been created that we could find, which was the vast majority of them. For example, Derry right now has one of these in effect. There was also two pretty robust cases. One had to do with state law, and that was the town of Ware, which went all the way up to the Supreme Court in 2006, and they found that it was constitutionally, the towns have constitutionally the right to do it. And then the other one actually was a I forget the exact term, but Hollis, Brookline were actually sued in federal court, and they said it was discriminatory. And although that case has not been completely disposed of, the meat of it involving discrimination, the U.S. District Court found that it was also not discriminatory and legal as long as it's preventing everything. So we basically looked at those two cases, and then we looked at 23 different ordinances, and what we tried to do was basically lift the best ideas from all of them. For example, one of the things, if you look at the percentage, the 0.25 and then the 14 or the certain percentage of square footage, that all comes from a couple of the pre-existing ones that have been either in force or were in force and expired.
If
Cool.
I
Anything
could
else, Roger?
also,
Yeah, go ahead.
can I just state that it's Channel 22, although it's kind of funny because anybody who's on Channel 22 knows it's on Channel 22. Everybody who's not isn't there to hear me say Channel 22, but it is Channel 22.
I do think the vast majority of people watch these after the fact anyway, so that if it's captured, that's the main thing, you know. Pyle, do you want to go next?
Do you just want a
Yeah,
sort
I
of-
mean, if you don't have to comment if you don't want to. I
No,
figured
I
just to
mean,
get us
I do
started.
have comments to give, but I didn't know if we were talking about the document as a whole, or because you started out saying that let's concentrate on the first paragraph.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
So-
everything up to like the first.
If she has 10,000-foot view idea, I mean, maybe let's just get
exactly.
that. you know,
10,000 review. I'm thinking everything up to exempt uses. So like the intro, that first page, basically.
Okay, so from the ordinance perspective, I just want to come out and say that I am very appreciative of the idea, and I do believe that a growth management ordinance or some aspect of growth management towards development in the town of Wyndham needs to exist. Having said that, and I know that beyond this discussion, we will probably be going for legal counsel. I had mentioned it even last time, that this document, just because it pertains to RSAs, and they can be tricky while being pretty direct in their language, I would feel more comfortable if this had gone through legal counsel, and preferably the legal counsel that would defend us if need be. But having said that, there are two other things that I would request that, or would like to see done. First and foremost, the secondary implications of growth management. Now, I know that development itself has costs, but there are secondary implications to having a growth management. So, you know, the current use, tax collection decrease, building permit fee decreases, etc. If a study was undertaken to that, just so because understanding these secondary factors will lead us to fewer surprises when we ask the voters to vote on this in March. Also, I would much prefer to see in the time frame of the temporary moratorium that we also pursue other aspects of growth management. So not just restricted to the typical growth management ordinance as the RSA for growth management suggests, but look into smart zoning. Because one of the troubling things of the growth management ordinance, and I'm going to read it right as it states over here, that the planning board in a municipality that adopts such an ordinance shall promptly undertake development of a plan for the orderly and rational development of municipal services needed to accommodate anticipated normal growth. So the way I see this is that, and pardon me for not being able to put it more eloquently, but that's basically extending an illness versus finding a cure for it. Because in the end, we would be coming up in a way to support the kind of development that we are basically trying to control. So we're just going to push out the D-Day, is all I'm saying. So I think that it would be also beneficial for us to look at smart zoning instead of just going for this, dual growth management ordinance. And especially because, we know the pulse of the town, and particularly in the past, certain issues that would support, development have been put to bed. Without getting into details on that, I don't want to press a nerve for anyone, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think that these are points that we should consider very strongly before we move forward with it. And again, I am extremely thankful to Kathleen DeFrugia for her time and in helping the planning board to put this together and providing legal counsel. But I will stress again that this needs to go through the town. A land use attorney needs to look through this.
Sure, yeah, let me respond first, then I'll give you a shot, because I know what part I want you to talk about.
Okay.
So yeah, I caught three big things there. I'm just trying to keep good notes here, so I'm
Sure.
trying to paraphrase you.
Happy to
So one is legal review is needed, so let me address that. So that was my call. I heard, you mentioned this before, and it's a debate, right? Obviously, we need to get legal review of this, of course, right? The question is when. So because we hadn't even discussed it yet, I felt like the best thing was for us to discuss it, because I know if I had my way, some of this is going to change tonight, right? I have a few things that I want to change. I might lose that. I don't know where we're going to end up. But if we do end up changing things here, I didn't want to send it to Bernie before we did that discussion, because we'd be wasting his time, right? I don't want to incur legal costs by having the attorney review something that we don't even want to do, right? So I felt like us reviewing it first. But I totally agree. I appreciate that we had a lawyer on the subcommittee, which is great. I'm sure it's going to be stronger for that, but the town's attorney obviously needs to review this. Second, you mentioned secondary implications like land use fees, like current use fees, and impact fees being reduced. Yeah, I agree. That should be part of the discussion. It's something we should look at both now and like in the future.
Yes.
And then the third point you made, I think Matt could speak to this better than me, but the point is that it's a temporary moratorium, and I agree. That's my understanding, is you're not even legally allowed to do this, even if you wanted to, for more than a year. It's a pause for to get your house in order, and you're supposed to use the time, which we're going to need to over the next year, to address the problems that you're trying to deal with, right? So you can't just take a year break and then go back to business as usual. I guess you could, but it would be a waste of time. The idea is you put something in place, and that's absolutely what we're going to need to do to have a more permanent solution going forward. So Matt, can you speak to that a little bit? Is that the part you want to talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like, I'll just table my comment on legal review, so I'll just move straight on to the process. So once again, I just want to read the last part here, then talk about it in a little bit of detail. Recommended course of action to correct and alleviate circumstances. Develop a growth management process under RSA 67422. Develop growth management zoning ordinance. GMO to be introduced at expiration of temporary moratorium. Annual planning board review to update as necessary the GMO for a period of 5 years. That doesn't mean that it is 5 years. It means that every year the planning board takes a look and says, Are we good to lift it, or do we need to keep it in place? Phased development, develop phased development ordinance to take effect at expiration of GMO. That is the permanent. Once you get through the other stages, that's when you put in some permanent phased controls that then stick around in theory forever or until they're taken away. Modify Wyndham master plan as needed. Modify capital improvements program as needed. Now, the one thing that is not in here, which I'm going to say we absolutely need to add because it's become very apparent since we did this version on August, impact fees. Impact fees are horribly non-representative of what would be needed for growth. And that would be a 4-hour conversation in itself, so I'm just going to say impact fees should be added to this. But here's the thing. This is all about, we don't know. There are a lot of, we know that we know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know what we don't know. It's like I'm saying that thing wrong. But basically, there's a lot of unknowns that we need to get a handle on. And we don't know what they are, because I can tell you that if you go and look at what projected kids per particular dwelling is, you're going to get 4 different answers depending on what study you look at. And the state ones, I'm going to be blunt, are garbage. And so we need to figure out within our own community what those are.
So we've got impact fees on the list now.
Yep.
I don't think we should get into it tonight, because we've done it before, and it takes 2 hours, right? It's a complicated subject, but yeah, it should be on the list, right?
Right.
Anything else, Pyle?
So again, this was just sort of a, the 10-foot view on the concept itself. As far as the document, I mean, I do have some notes towards that. I don't know if you want me to get into it right now,
Why
or
don't we
do
keep
you?
going around? I like this
Sure.
10,000-foot view, because I have notes too about the specific, like what's included, what's excluded. I think we're going to need to go through those in detail individually, so let's hang on to that if that's the kind
Sure,
of stuff
and
you have.
if I may be allowed to just say one more thing. So all I was trying to say that post the temporary, I mean, I know the temporary moratorium and the growth management ordinance are sort of tied into each other. I just want to stress on the aspect where it says good faith effort into ensuring that we are working towards, buildable development. So that
We have to, that's the law.
correct. That's why I'm saying that for me, it's pushing out the D-Day. Eventually, we would need to. So instead, I am suggesting a secondary route, which is of taking the time, but doing a smart zoning ordinance instead of a growth management. But
Yeah.
I'm very.
I mean, we're even kind of arguably doing that this year, right?
Yes.
Because we are making zoning changes specifically tailored to respond. I mean, we basically legally have to, right? We're making zoning changes to deal with like 631, for instance, right? Because if
Correct.
we don't, we're going to, have lawsuit issues, and also we're going to have, really undesirable development. So we have to. So we're right now we're kind of very reactively like doing what we have to do. But I agree, it's going to take 2-3 years probably to put all the zoning in place. that we're
Exactly,
gonna need.
and it's a good thing that you brought up that legal aspect of it. Again, the conversation that I was trying to have even earlier was with that intent itself, that our goal is to get to that flag, right? And we want to make sure that we have, in your famous words, crossed the T's and dotted the I's, so that we actually have a success parameter, right? Because if we do this incorrectly, at the end of the day, we are not only going to lose that flag, but then we have no control over what goes into it when we lose the flag. That's the message I just want to drive home. But
Gotcha.
thank you.
Derek, you got anything?
First, thanks to the subcommittee. Obviously, they've done a lot of work. I mean, I think it's well-written. I think it's really going to come down to the appendix, right? Because that's the meat of it. What are the real issues, and how do we go to address those moving forward? I mean, are they addressable? Some of the stuff is pretty tough to tackle, but other than that, I think it's well-written, and I want to hear what the public have to say. Well, when we get to that point.
Cool. Greg?
Yeah, I have some specific feedback as well as we get deeper into it, but I agree with Derek. I mean, I think we need to hear what the public needs to say. I think obviously it's well written. I think we need growth. Growth's going to happen in this town. We want to make sure we do it in a responsible way. I've only been on the planning board for a short period of time, but I've heard some serious concerns around the school, around water, around 111. So I can understand the genesis of this and appreciate the work that the board has done to get this far, the subcommittee has done to get this far. I'm really interested in hearing from the public and just understanding what type of ripple effects we may not be thinking about as we continue to dive into this.
Thanks, Greg. Jack?
So originally, this was about the first paragraph up until, I don't have any issue with the wording in that first paragraph, from 10,000-foot view here. You know, the big thing is why this matters, and for me, that's the big deal, and it's Wyndham's master plan. It's 3 goals: preserve rural character and small-town atmosphere, protect drinking water, aquifers, wetlands, and natural resources, all while avoid overloading schools, roads, and public services. I mean, that's why we're pressing the pause button. And I look forward to digging into this a little further when we get to some special exemptions. I've got some ideas on loosening the reins on that a little bit, but when we get to that point, we can talk about that. But that's all I have from this high up.
Great. Matt?
This may sound strange for me to weigh in on a few things, but since this draft has been written, I have talked to actually quite a few constituents, and one of the things I would suggest that we modify from this is that we remove the requirement for it to be, I don't think you necessarily have to live in the house, but I still think we should keep it one construction of one unit, but I don't necessarily think that we should be restricting that to the homeowner building it in case they have a developer who's building it for them or something like that. So there's some things we should definitely modify. And then the other thing I want to say is I'm currently also on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, and last night when I heard Fire talking about some things, I already have white hair coming in, but some more came in. These are a couple examples, just so you understand why I think this growth ordinance or this temporary moratorium needs to go in place so we can get a handle on these things. The cost of one engine is now $1.25 million, and it takes, was it 4 years, Shannon, to get it? 4 to 5 years to get an engine. It costs $1.25 million this year. And in 2022, it cost $870K. So if you want to do the math on that, I mean, who knows what it's going to cost when we need another one. And the other thing that kind of scared me was when they told me what the response times were to get up to the tail end of 28. So for example, the old folks, the 55-plus thing that the town's talking about building, right now the response time to get there is somewhere between 12 and 14 minutes. It should be 4 to 6 to be safe, and we're at 12 to 14 minutes to get up there. So we have some serious things as a town to think about if we want to get our safety there. And that's not the fire department's fault. I mean, they need a substation. That's also a whole different conversation. But I'm just saying, there are things right now that we need to look at. Heaven forbid we have to accommodate more.
All right, I agree with some of what you said, but I think people are all kind of chomping at the bit to get at these later sections, so we're going to do that in a second. Let me give my quick 10,000-foot view, though, first, since it's my turn. Yeah, I think this is a good document. I think the reason for me that we need to do this and the reason that this exists is a couple things, right? One is we have a town right now, the status quo is we have a town that's the infrastructure is stretched to its limit, right? If you talk to the school boards, the schools are full. There's no plan if you all of a sudden introduce large numbers or even moderate numbers of new students. There's no plan for that. And we know what that looks like. We've seen that before with temporary classrooms in the front lawn and kids being taught in the hallways and no special classes like art and music or anything. So we don't want to go back to those bad old days. We also have, regularly have people coming to our meetings with, tales of multiple 2,000-foot wells in their property, and they're going to the laundromat all summer because the water table is so taxed. And they're begging us for help, and it regularly happens. We have meetings from this summer where, dozens of people coming in and saying that to us. And now, so things are stretched as it is, and then you look at the future, and we have this 631, which is going to force the town. We can't not do it. We have to now allow residential development in all commercial zones, right? That's going to dramatically, there's just no way around it. Even if we try to put some guardrails around it, that's going to dramatically increase the density of this town. It's going to change this town. And they're doing that on purpose. The state wants to do that to us, and they're doing it to us. And also, we have infrastructure, right? The thing that's preventing density now is the fact that we're on septic systems and we have soil-based lot sizing. Well, right now, the Department of Transportation, and they're openly, admittedly, doing this outside the will of the Wyndham voters. They know we don't want it, and they're doing it anyways. They're gonna try to widen 111, and then the DES New Hampshire DES is trying to put a water line down 111. That again, they know we don't want it. They know the voters have rejected it many times. They're going to do it anyways. So we have these infrastructure projects coming that we don't want. We have legislation coming that is going to force high-density housing, and we're already stretched to our limits. So that, in my mind, that is in a nutshell why we're doing this, because that's kind of, I think, the million-dollar question, right? And then over the next, several months for the moratorium, we're going to, get into the appendix data with all the information backing that up, like, fire, police, schools, everything else. But then, as Pyle mentioned, it's going to go on for years, right? And we can't just sit on our hands for a year with this moratorium's in place. We have to go out and really dig into these items and say, how much growth can we handle? And here's the plan for that. Here's what we're going to do going forward, because we can't not allow growth. We want people to be able to build in town, right? But we can't allow, 2,000 apartments every year to be built, because that's not science fiction. That's what's happened in Bedford. That's what happened in Merrimack. If you look at this town, we only have 6,000 houses.
Londonderry.
Yeah, Londonderry. If you come in and build 2,000 houses in a year, which completely would happen if we didn't do something to stop it, this town, that's a 30% increase in 1 year. The infrastructure of this town cannot handle that without massive detrimental effects to the taxpayers. All right, so let's get into the first section, which talks about, included uses? Where are we? Exempt uses.
Is that where you want to go to? Okay.
Yeah, so let's keep it in order. So this section, exempt uses, is pretty short. I think you can kind of spare 2 pages and get it on the same screen if you can, or no?
I can make it smaller. I was just trying to make it so folks could
Yeah, we
read
can
it.
focus on the top half. The bottom is hospitals, medical facilities, and parks and
Let me do,
recreational
I
trails.
think I can do that. Hold on. There you go. They're all there.
So where are we at with this? I think it works pretty well doing what we're doing. Roger, do you want to go around the room again, and do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, one of my big questions, and we discussed this during one of the workshops we had, was the ADUs. And the fact that now the law also allows ADUs, detached ADUs, to be put on property by right. And what that is also going to do is greatly increase the density. So
I thought about, we could pull it. What,
We could what?
Well, why don't we just get rid of attached ADUs?
Okay. Well, that was one of my concerns. So I just wanted to bring that up on this paragraph.
Well, all right, that's an interesting one.
That says attached. You are now allowed to have detached also.
HB
I'd like to get rid of
577.
detached or
Record.
control the detached ADUs. Because, think about it. There's so many properties in town that have extra acreage attached to them, but, just by the fact that they were built a long time ago when big acres, big properties were the fad. And I know I myself have 1.3 acres, of which I use the front probably half an acre. But I got all that land in the back. Can I just throw another house, maybe even 2, back there? And what's that going to do to the density? So I think that needs to also be controlled in this moratorium.
All right, you're making good points. In fairness, it was one of the things I liked and I wanted to keep. And I was even thinking that we might include detached ADUs just because we're legally required now, thanks to the legislation that's been passed, to require detached ADUs. But yeah, this is something we'll have to discuss as a board, because it's...
Well, let me ask you then, how does a detached ADU differ from another single-family home next door?
Yeah, well, it's smaller. It's 900 square feet. And I'm not... What I'm worried about is the big, 300 units, 600 units coming in, all of a sudden, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's going to happen with ADUs. Even putting in a 900 square foot ADU costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I feel like most of the people that do that are doing it for grandma, or for their, adult children or something. I feel like it's less likely that we're going to get swarmed by it, the way that's going to overrun services. But I'm open to, opinions. I'm kind of curious to hear what the board says about this.
For
So
what
as
it
we go down-
costs to put another structure on your house, that's very far and few between, I feel, in this town. It's a big expenditure to put another house on your property, unless you're subdividing it.
But to my point is, it's going to add the same level of services as another house. When you bring in your kids with kids into your house, it's no different than having them exist in a house next door to you.
I don't feel
As
it's
far
going to
as
be
the
as massive as you think it is.
Well, I'm not saying it's massive, but I still think it should be controlled. That's all.
You know,
It's a good point.
And first, I want to just preface, like, the whole point of this is for us to figure out what this is. This is the subcommittee's work, and I expected this to be modified. I think you bring up a good point that, yes, if there was a significant amount of attached or detached ADUs, it's going to put burden, which we're currently trying to take a pause on. Maybe a compromise would be to throw it under we already have something built in for a certain amount of exceptions. We could put the ADUs under that, have them go to the ZBA, and have it under the cap of, currently it's 14, I don't know what's going to end up at, but if we put it down there, we're addressing yours, but then we're also still keeping it so that if someone wants to do it, they can. The whole idea of this first exception is that, if a regular resident has a house and they want to build a pool, that's not going to adversely affect, it's not going to adversely affect our services. It's just a pool, or if they want to put on a fence or a walkway. The point was, those are not things that are going to adversely affect the community and what we're currently trying to look at. That was the logic of that first line.
And if you guys don't mind, if you want to keep going, you can go. I'm not going to stop board members from talking, but suggestion that we leave it here and move on. We're not making any decisions tonight, right? We're not finalizing this language tonight. We're not voting on tonight. There's nothing happening tonight except for a workshop to find out where everybody's at. The ADU thing, I came in here feeling one way. Roger's kind of convinced me the other way. I think we have to decide, attached, detached, both, they be excluded, included? There's good arguments on either side of it. I think this is something that everybody needs to think about. A lot of this is going to have to happen, in your minds when you're, driving home from work thinking about this stuff. And in the next workshop, we're going to have to hammer more of this out. But I think just capturing it for now, I think that's a good catch. And I think we should, all be thinking about it. What else you got, Roger? Anything else?
That's good for now, for that paragraph.
How about you, Pyle? You got anything on this section? Again, you don't have to, guys. I'm just kind of going through.
Yes, I do. So, for one, and I would like to hear more from Matt as to why the application is to the commercial development, but then we are giving exceptions down for only certain type of commercial developments. So basically, if someone wants to put in, let's say, like anything to do with entertainment is not included, I would assume. I see no impact negatively for that, so I would like to hear on that. Also, I am with Roger in not having exempt uses for attached ADUs or detached ADUs. I hear the argument that it costs money to put that onto your property, but currently the houses in Wyndham are going for $1 million. My house is $1 million. I assure you I will not be able to sell it for $1 million, but somehow it is $1 million. I digress. But the point is, it's much cheaper if someone wants to bring their family in to this town and wants to live and have them nearby. It would be compared to spending $1 million versus, let's say, 500 or 400. I have no clue, honestly. Perhaps you can educate me on that. I have no clue how much.
It's a lot.
A lot, but I am sure of it without having any knowledge that it's less than $1 million. 100%. So I think that we should just not have them in exempt uses, attached as well as detached.
I'm okay with that.
I'm sorry?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Should I didn't know if Matt wanted to respond to me or he'll
I would
just
say
take
keep
notes
going.
and wait.
Matt can take notes. We shouldn't.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be everyone with a back and forth with Matt just as he was on
Fair
the
enough.
committee.
And
Thank you.
maybe one thing just to clarify too, when you look at the exempt uses, so actually let me give you the logic for each one, then maybe that'll help.
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so improvements to existing houses. Well, they aren't going to put an additional burden on. If you already have a 4-bedroom house, you got a 4-bedroom house. And if you put on a porch, it's not going to cause us to have materially not more of a burden on the services. Obviously, the same thing for docks. It just was separated out. Fire and police stations, those don't create a burden. Those help alleviate the burden that we're currently trying to deal with. Municipal administrative buildings. Well, an administrative building, once again, will help alleviate burden. There's a reason that it specifically says administrative buildings. It's not all buildings. Libraries, same thing. It's not causing more stress. It's relieving stress on services. School educational institutions, same thing. If we currently have issues with capacity and we build another school, we're solving the problem. So the last thing you want to do is stop a problem from being solved. Churches and places of worship. Well, let's just say I think it's a good idea to exempt that. I think we'll all agree with that, and I'm gonna leave it there. And then parks, trails, recreational facilities, conservation, land improvements, same thing. It's there, it's not creating a new burden. The one thing that a constituent did point out is that maybe public recreational facilities should be looked at a little more closely, because and that's reasonable, there are some things there. Hospitals, medical facilities, same thing. Those are adding to the relief of what we're trying to deal with. So that was the whole logic. That's why these things are exempt. They're not adding to the problem.
Matt, I think you might have, first of all, thank you. They're pretty self-explanatory. I think you misunderstood me. I was trying to ask you why in the temporary moratorium, the line that says temporary moratorium applies to the following types and categories of development, and you included residential, commercial, industrial, and land use. I was asking if commercial was used, then why are we only including just a few, why are we providing only a few examples of limited impact uses for conditionally exempt? And I may have skipped a paragraph and gone further down than what our chair had expected me to do, so I do apologize for that. But I was asking you specifically on that.
I would say maybe we want to wait till the next section, because that is a whole different conversation than what we're currently talking
Sure,
about.
yeah. It's my bad. I just had that line over there, so I didn't want to miss out on asking. Thank you.
Sure. Are you good, Pyle? Derek?
Good.
Greg?
Yeah, I'm good. I would just say I agree. I think on the ADU, I can't see that being overwhelming the town in that short period of the 12-month moratorium, but I think moving it to on the ZBA as an exemption makes a lot of sense. It's fine.
Cool. Jack?
I was wondering if we could add the word nonprofit to educational institutions
Sure.
for clarification.
That was on my list. I actually wanted to ask about that. When you say education, is that, government schools? My libertarian friends are going to be so happy I said the word government schools in a meeting. Or do you mean like if a private school wants to expand or open? I mean, I would say both, right? I mean, neither one is going to tax the town resources. I would think private and public.
Well, it actually is funny. I mean, and once again, this is probably splitting hairs and going into the weeds a little too much, but if it's a school that exclusively serves Wyndham children, then it's alleviating the problem. But if it's a school, like let's say Phillips Exeter wanted to come to town, that's not necessarily alleviating our problem. It's probably most likely going to be a lot of folks from other towns, and then it would be a stress on the infrastructure. I mean, once again, I'm not saying we should get that level of detail, but yeah, sure, there's an argument both ways.
Go ahead, Jack. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack
No,
you.
I wanted to just put it in the verbiage for nonprofit, that's all.
No problem. Works for me.
And then, so, are you done, Jack?
Yeah, that's
One
all I
other
had.
question, Matt, what about like a for-profit daycare, something like that?
Like, once again, I mean, that's what I'm saying. A daycare is probably something we want to see, right? I mean, these are all things that will alleviate, well, then there's like different things. A daycare would use more infrastructure, but it also would alleviate stress, I mean, on needs. I mean, I guess it's a question of what we want to do.
I would suggest instead of getting into nitty-gritty of it, I would suggest let's leave it on the peripheral and just say educational uses. Everything that you guys mentioned would fall under educational uses. I think splitting hairs between profit and nonprofit, honestly, I don't even think we should go down that road, not right now.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But yeah, again, we don't need to make big decisions tonight.
Yeah.
It's a point that was brought up. We captured it. Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that does bring a lot of need for services, especially for the fire department, is assisted living. And hospitals are up there. Is that considered a hospital, or how does that fit into the exemptions? Is there an exemption for assisted living?
No.
Good, because I think that does provide the need for a lot of services.
I mean, yeah, it's basically whether it's a house full of children or a house full of elderly folks. I mean, it's the same thing as far as burden on services. I mean, I'm sure relatively we could argue what has more and less, but those are burdens. They're not assets in this particular example.
Okay, I just didn't know if hospitals fit that need.
Oh, you want those pulled out? We could do that. I mean,
No, I just didn't know if it fit the need of assisted living. I'm just looking at some of the assisted living that we have in town and the impact it has on the fire departments.
well, if you were confused about that, then we should definitely clarify, because we don't want to make sure anyone else is confused about it. I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah, I think first of all, we need to have the discussion, is assisted living in or out? And then second of all, either way, it should be explicitly called out. Because I agree, if you say medical facilities, somebody who wants to open an assisted living would come in and say, I'm a medical facility, you know what I mean? So I think there's definitely wiggle room there that we don't want to leave. Whether we do it or not, I'm kind of agnostic, but we should be clear. And if you're done, Jack?
I'm done.
So that was the point I was going to make, actually. Just as like a practical matter, the one thing I would change to this section is when you talk about fire and police, administrative, libraries, schools, I just prefer that to be rewritten to say like government uses, and then have sub-bullets, right? To specific, but just say like we're talking about government here. So government uses, fire and police, administrative buildings, libraries, schools. And then have like non-government listed, like if we want to include private schools, like I think we should just delineate between the two. Because if you say like, fire and police station, it's obviously has to be government. But if you say schools, there's, private schools and government schools, and even a library. I mean, it can get kind of, I would just prefer to be really clean on that. Like list the government uses together, label them as such, just to make it clear.
And you know what, Jack, actually, you bring up a good point. I haven't heard about any plans to build a new library in town, so if we pulled library, it's probably immaterial.
It's a silly thing to even argue about
Yeah.
anyways. Yeah,
No, I
the
mean,
new
you're right,
library is going
though.
to be built in the
Yeah.
next year is kind of silly. But
Well, out of the 22 other moratoriums, did any of them call that out?
from the other towns, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I pulled a lot of this from those types of things.
I'm just seeing what other towns have done. You don't have
I mean, frankly, this is far more accommodating than most of them. Most of them are pretty much like, don't build anything.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Is other towns just say, don't build anything. We're shutting everything down. We're not going to accommodate everybody, and we're kind of trying to bend over backwards to be
I was
accommodating.
more referring to just how the verbiage lays out.
Oh, yeah,
Not
and
so much.
so it's funny, so the verbiage, here's a good way to put it. If you look at dairies, you can tell that dairy had a very skilled, probably professional municipal group putting it together. There was one, I think it was Plastow, I might be on the wrong town, but there was one of the smaller ones that's on the border, and it was literally like, we're in trouble, we need to do something, this is why we're doing this, and it was extreme, there was extremes of creation. I will say this, though, that most of them were not fluff, not big, flashy, they were like meaty and to the point, and did not mince words on what the problems were.
You good, Jack?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm surprised that I'm the first one to bring this up. So if I'm completely off base, it's fine. I'm not going to die in this hill. The thing that I was going to suggest here, and I don't have like a list off the top of my head, I kind of assumed everyone else was going to be honest, is I would have included more things here just along the lines of, like Matt said, the goal is exclude things that wouldn't, that wouldn't be harmful to the town from like a growth perspective, right? So I feel like if somebody wants to open a restaurant, how does that hurt us, right? Like I feel like if it was up to me, restaurants would be on this list. And same thing with even, I don't know, even like.
Maybe should we drop down then, maybe, because that's what restaurants are talked about.
Yeah, it talks about limited uses. I get that.
I'm not saying they shouldn't be excluded. I'm saying that, whatever you want will obviously, you get what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I
Like,
get what you're saying.
yeah.
You're limiting it to you're limiting it to damage, and I'm trying to think of like restaurants is probably a bad example because it's right in that next section here, right? But I'm just if I racked my brain, I bet I could come up with more than this list, and I bet we all could, right? Of things that could be built that don't require an additional firefighter or police officer or teacher or town clerk,
Well, here's an example. Let's say, I love Irish bars. Let's say we put an Irish bar in town, which I would want. But you're probably going to need more policemen. You're probably going to need more emergency services. That's what I mean. It's not a net zero. That's,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like I said, if everyone disagrees with me, that's fine. That's my feedback, and we can move on. I don't want to hold us up. So if we go to the next section, so now we're talking about limited impacts uses. So these are things that are exempt, but there's criteria. And then, so yeah, this is a pretty short section, but it's pretty important because it talks
And
about
if-
restaurants, coffee shops, personal service.
I think one of the things that the planning board should take a look at here is, it's the second line. Combined total such uses constructed or issued, I'll cut through it. Basically, it says 12,000 square feet maximum for all things. That is a number that I think the planning board needs to talk about and figure out what you want it to be, because that's the control right there. So In other words, if you put it at 40, it's 40. If you put it at 5, you know what I mean? That's the number I think the planning board as a whole needs to figure out. The subcommittee recommended 12.
All right, where are you at with this one, Roger, if you don't mind us starting us off again?
I'm okay with this paragraph.
Pyle?
So this is the part I had ended up venturing into with my previous comment. My suggestion would be, to me, it seems a little contradictory to say we are restricting commercial use and then having only certain commercial uses, which don't include all the commercial uses with zero impact. Now, perhaps I'm being a little too romantic with my words and saying zero impact here because, yes, even restaurants require town services. But either we just allow commercial development to go through or include or expand this conditionally exempt use to a lot more. I will, however, and perhaps you guys can, and I just want to be, if I forgot to look it up. Does storage fall under commercial or industrial?
I think it might be allowed in both. I'd have to check.
Are you
Okay.
Are you saying we want to allow storage?
I'm saying that, well, I want to be very choice with my words here. I'm saying that commercial services should be allowed, but with the caveat of, I don't want to see a bunch of, right? If we're trying to maintain the character of the town, you obviously don't want to see a lot of storage sort of going up in town. Not trying to be discriminatory towards it, but just saying with this, if we're going to do conditionally exempt. So I would be okay with the 12,000 square foot town-wide number if we didn't do the, I'm not entirely sure if I'm confident on that no single applicant, landowner, developer, or affiliated entity statement actually making it through legal, to be honest.
I'll let you know that an attorney who beat Bernie in court thought that was okay.
Well, let's not.
Matt, I don't want to get
just
into
saying,
that
the
right
attorneys
now.
looked at
Let's take it up a level.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can I ask about that bullet, since you guys brought it up? I was actually a little bit confused by it. I'm not sure what it's trying to do and what it means. So can you speak to it, Matt? So no single
Sure.
applicant
Well, let me-
can do anything exceeding 5,000 square feet in total?
And I apologize, yeah, just trying to defend the attorney on our subcommittee. But anyways, moving back. Here is the idea here. This is here to act as a relief valve, because we could simply just say nothing, right? And so this is like, all right, you know, if there's someone who's been planning to put in a restaurant and they're in process and they're already halfway through, we want to give them an avenue to put it in place, but at the same time, it's like, okay, 12,000 square feet will probably not materially affect the resources of the fire department, police department, water, et cetera. So it's basically, this is like a relief valve. Keep in mind, this is a year, right? We're not talking about, I mean, a year after this, then it's a whole different ballgame. So this is essentially here to act as a relief valve to something that might already be in process. Because if you know where I'm trying to go, that's why it's that. And so,
But it doesn't say that.
well, it does in the sense of you can do one, it's 5,000 square feet max, 12,000 max, which means you could probably get 2 or 3 things out of it. But sure, we could make it more clear. We could absolutely make it more clear.
Yeah, so I'm embarrassed. I've read this thing at least 3 times, and I didn't catch that. So I'm catching it for the first time, that you're saying combined total. So if somebody wants to come in and build a CVS, and somebody else wants to come in and build a Rite Aid, and somebody else wants to come in and build a nail salon, and somebody else wants to come in and build a Dunkin' Donuts, all of them added up have to be under 12,000 square feet?
Or whatever number the planning board
Yeah,
wants to put it at.
I
That's
mean-
why I'm saying, if you want to make it a different number,
Yeah, I would make it 120 more than 12. I mean, but it's,
but here's the interesting count, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be 120, I'm saying here's the interesting counterpoint. Second you get to a number where it's going to materially affect what our current resources can do, then you're defeating the purpose. In other words, like if you had 6 new things that were all 20,000 square feet, that would require fire, police, et cetera. This is not about picking and choosing winners. This is about this is not about figuring out what we want. This is about figuring out how to maintain what we currently have and then set up a system so that we
gotcha.
can have growth in a responsible manner.
Pyle, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I just want to expand on my point a little bit more in terms of not putting commercial uses in conditionally exempt. In fact, I would say allow it, but have conditions towards the commercial uses. Because if we're just going to restrict it to dine-in restaurants, coffee shops, and personal services, does that mean that anything else is not allowed? So for example, in town, we have a cigar shop, right? And it's specialized as a retail. It's categorized as a specialized retail establishment. So that is not something that is included in here in the language. So in order to avoid that kind of, why even put it there?
I'm with you. I actually could see a pretty reasonable argument to just scratch dine-in restaurants, coffee shops, personal service, and just say commercial.
Yeah,
I mean-
that commercial is exempt and then put conditions to it.
The main thing, right, is we don't want a Walmart or a Amazon distribution
Correct.
center to be put in while we're in a moratorium. I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? We're trying to prevent mega development so we can catch our breath and come up with some new zoning. So we want to prevent that, but.
But
go ahead.
that's
I was
why
gonna say-
I was okay. Oh, sorry?
I'm waiting for you to...
I'll yield to you. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was that whatever you want it to be, and if it's all commercial, and I'd like to hear what the whole board thinks about that, but whatever it's going to be, whether it's restricted or everything, the key here is the total. So what I'm saying is that if you think 12,000 square feet is not enough, but I'm trying to tell you that 12,000 square feet is probably a lot closer to what it should be than 120. It's literally a question of, it's really a, hey, we're putting a temporary pause on everything. This is a relief valve. It's not, hey, we're putting a temporary pause. Now go build 6 things in the next year.
So,
Pyle, you
so
go
to
ahead.
that point, I actually had done a quick research before I came up here. A restaurant, a full-size, full-serving restaurant would be somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet. A coffee shop would be between 2,000, and these are all full services, 2,000 and 3,000 square feet. So technically restricting that development for that sort of development to a 12,000 square feet townwide is something I'm okay with because that takes care of the point you just brought up, which would be to not want to see a giant, brand store go into town. So I think, of course, the rest of the board has to obviously give its input, but personally, from my perspective, I'm okay with that number, but I would like the board to truly consider just allowing all commercial to be exempt.
I just really want for the public to know, this is not about deciding whether or not we want a Walmart or any other type of development. This is about the total development and whether or not we can currently handle it, whether or not we can handle more. So whether or not there's going to be an Amazon distribution center 2 years from now, if it's allowed under current zoning, that's a whole different conversation. This is not about picking winners and losers. This is about taking a pause so we can figure out where we're at, because we know that where we're at right now is not sustainable and we don't have a good handle on what we need. And frankly, it's a combination of probably shame on us, but also shame on a lot of new state RSAs, which is through
Yeah.
decades of zoning out the window.
Let's keep it moving. I am curious to hear what the public has to say about this. I've got a lot of conflicting thoughts about this. I'm sure we all do. There's many ways you can go about doing this. And
Should
this
we get
is-
through the rest
this
before we
is
turn it
key.
over?
Yeah. We're not open to the public now. I'm just saying it's an interesting note. Derek, do you want to go ahead?
So a couple of things on this. It's pretty tricky, right? Because you can see a Dunkin' Donuts using a lot more water than a martini bar serving tapas or something, right? So it goes back to the appendix, right? A bar is going to cause more firemen or maybe more police officers to show up than a Dunkin' Donuts. And the square footage thing is tough. We get in trouble with that a lot. We just can't put a number on it. It needs to be founded somehow, right? So we kind of need to dig into that a little bit more. And then lastly, I'll just say, this is an ordinance, so anything that's in the process now will not be affected by this. This is for everything new once it's adopted.
I actually have to correct you on one thing there. This will have to do with, I think it's certificate of occupancies, or I have to go back and check, but so if something is approved right now, but it has not paid impact fees or it's not gotten certain permits, it will affect it. That's not, I mean, that is not my personal thing, hey, let's do this. I'm just telling you that's the way the law is set up.
That'd be great, but I just think if I were a developer and I had something in process right now and we adopted this, I'd have a pretty good lawyer go and fight it.
Yeah, we should, in my opinion,
That's
we
all.
should put in an exemption for people that are in flight, right, that are already.
Well, I don't know, like, we need to figure out that with the attorneys and stuff.
It doesn't mean that their approvals go away. It means that there's a 12, you know, I don't want to
No,
get it, that's going to get way down another
We don't
hole,
need to, we don't need to
rabbit
go point by point with every single thing. Bring
I'm
up
not, I'm
points,
just
we're gonna
making it-
capture them, and we can, you know, we're gonna workshop this again. Anything else, Derek?
No.
Greg?
Yeah, Matt, quick question. On the conditionally exempt, is that like a conditional use permit where they come in front of the planning board to get that? Or is that automatically applied through code enforcement?
It's automatic. So, I mean, that's the other thing, that's what I'm trying to say, is like, this is basically saying there's 12, and whatever the number's gonna be. So it's basically right now saying, hey, there's 12,000 square feet of development for these uses there, and then you would just deal with it as you normally deal with going and getting the permits and things. This isn't about us figuring out what gets in and out. This is basically, here's what's there. I mean, obviously, if you need approval, normally, you'd have to go in front of us for whatever. But yeah, this is not a ZBA thing. This is automatic.
Or a conditional use permit would be planning board, potentially.
I could be that too, yeah.
But, okay, just was wondering, that's all.
Ooh, that's interesting. So if I understood correctly, under all the uses under conditionally exempt would not even come in front of the planning board?
Why would they? I mean, well, hold on. I mean, obviously, if you're going to go build something, you need yes, if there were, it would come in front of the planning board for whatever its normal stuff is. It wouldn't come in
Right.
front of the planning board for this ordinance, because this ordinance says if there's X amount of space. That's why if you look at the bottom there, it says building inspector shall track all floor area, and then deny any application after it hits the limit.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit confused. If somebody wants to build something and they think they meet the conditionally exempt use, they come to staff, right? Whatever, next year, and they say, this is what I'm trying to build. Staff will say, nope, there's a moratorium, you can't build that, or you're lucky, you're conditionally exempt, go to the planning board through the normal process. So it's not like they skip the planning board, it's just that we're not
Okay.
the deciders of whether they meet this or not.
Thank
Staff
you for
will come just
clarifying.
like anything else.
I must have misunderstood what he was trying to say. Thank you.
Greg, you done?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Jack?
I agree with Matt on this. We're pressing pause for a year. In a blink of an eye, a year is going to be over. And it's not a lot of time to get our act together. That's the whole reason we're doing this. So I'm in favor of this section.
Well said. Yeah, I don't have anything to add, so let's move on to the next section. Special exemption for owner-occupied single-family dwellings. I'm sure this is going to be an interesting discussion. Roger, if you don't mind, always taking the point for us.
So this is, you got to remind me, Matt, this is the one I
Sure,
had
I
an
mean,
issue with.
This was actually something we put in a little bit later, and it's not unique, but this is something that is definitely not in the majority of the moratorium. So the logic here was this. Originally, here was the logic. If you're just a regular person and you got yourself your plot of land and you're planning to build your house, we didn't want the moratorium to catch you sideways. And so this was an idea where we'd be like, all right, if this is a house and you're going to live in it and you already have it going in place, we assume there wouldn't be that many of them for one, right? Let's say there's maybe, I don't know how many there are. Let's say there's a dozen. So this is there to allow a regular person to be able to construct their house in process during the pause, because we figured that, and if you go look at the bottom, it's 14 because it's 0.25 of our total housing stock. It won't materially affect services. In other words, if you keep it that's the whole logic of all these exceptions. If you keep it very small, you're not going to materially affect services until we figure out how we're doing everything on a greater scale.
So the problem I had a couple months ago when we were discussing this,
Yeah, I
and I
remember.
still have, is that you can have a subdivision come in and the subdivision sells all the lots to individuals. So now you don't have a subdivision that owns 20 lots, you have 20 individual lot owners that to this can come in and build houses.
Yes.
So there's nothing stopping subdivisions from being created.
Yes, there is.
What's
Let me scroll back up. Moratorium applies to all subdivision approvals and lot line adjustments. Moratorium applies to all site plan, I don't know why that's, subdivision approvals and lot line adjustments, site plan approvals and building permits.
So there will not be any subdivisions allowed during this year? Zero?
Correct.
Oh,
Well, hold on. I mean, yes, there will not be any new subdivision approvals during the moratorium for a period of 1 year.
But if you already own a lot and you want to build a house, assuming you meet this
no,
long
my
list,
concern
you can.
was a subdivision selling the lots and then having individual lots. But that, if that line is going to carry through,
Yeah.
then we're good.
And if you look at lot was lawfully created or recorded prior to July 1st, 2025, has not been subdivided, merged, or altered after July 1st, 2025. And once again, we can change that date. That was, because when we were originally writing it, that was like present day. So, I mean, it could certainly be September 1st or whatever you want it to be.
Roger, you good?
I think.
We can get back to you.
No, I think,
Pyle?
I think we're covered. I think.
I am actually not for this. I would like to and again, I don't want to keep bringing up the point, but I just, I feel like this is a little contradictory. I just don't, from legal perspective, I don't think that we should allow special exceptions for single-family dwellings. Yeah.
Okay. Derek?
All of these special exemptions are going to be limited.
Derek, sorry,
by-
can you guys talk into the mic? It's about
The-
5 inches, what I was told.
All of the special exemptions are going to be underneath the certain percentage anyway.
Correct.
25. So it's limited anyway. There'd be no more than 14, right?
Yeah, so for example, this year, if you go to the bottom line, let me get there. Total number of special exceptions granted under this ordinance shall not exceed 0.25% of the town's total housing stock, equivalent to a maximum of 14 dwellings during the term of this. Yeah, so the absolute maximum amount of houses that would be built under this exception is 14. I mean, we build that in a week sometimes.
But I mean, I would say 14 would more than cover what we normally see in a year as far as like normal single-family house development, right?
Exactly.
Like we don't have a lot of ones and twosies. We do have 15-unit, 20-unit subdivisions come in, but it's rare that we see 14 individual people building a house. I mean, maybe, I don't know how many we see a year, 6, 8?
Right.
Not that many. So seems like a reasonable number. Sorry, Derek, what else you got? Greg?
Yeah, a couple things on this one. So I looked at what we've averaged for new homes. It's about 50 permits a year for single-family homes. We've averaged over the last 10 years. So just to put that in perspective of where we're at, I think that's an important information.
Sorry, that number's like subdivisions and onesie,
That's just
twosies.
single-family. So in the annual report, based on how they
Yeah.
build out building permits, they segregate building permits based on new single-family homes, multifamily, ADU, age-restricted, and then like seasonal conversions / remodels. So that's how it's broken up. So I'm referring to just the new home permits that come in. Just putting it out there. I don't know what the number should be, 14 or we've averaged at 50. I think my thought of the ordinance here is to protect, like you said, Jake, early on, about overwhelming development. So I feel like if we are going to keep this section in, maybe we got to find that right number. But the other thing that kind of I don't understand is why we would limit it to just natural persons. I think that a lot of people that if they are going to move to town, if they are building, they usually hire a developer to build that. I think that is completely reasonable. Otherwise, it'd be really difficult for folks to be able to get into build a home. However, I don't think developers should be able to take, to Roger's point, all the available stock that we have. So my thought process would be to allow that, but limit the amount of total permits one applicant could potentially get to protect against that issue, but still allow people to come in and build a single-family home if they needed to use a developer to help do that.
I think it's a
I was gonna make
great
that-
idea.
I was going to make that exact same point.
I think it's a great idea, Greg.
Jack? Sorry, Greg, you're done?
Yeah, done, thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to shadow on what Greg had said. I mean, I think if we remove the owner occupancy, the owner has to live there and open it up to 2. I don't think that would be a bad idea, instead of just 1.
Well, see, that's another thing, too. I mean, everything's a question of degrees, right? So if you said, all right, anyone can build 2 houses, but that's it, okay. I mean, it's a question of, so if there's 14 available and you could build 2, all right, or you can, that's what I'm trying to say, yeah. I don't think it's, I mean, if you got somebody who wants to build 2, that's probably still, I don't want to get myself into a
Well, if the
Gordian
builder-
knot here.
Yeah. Sorry, Jack, keep going.
I'd be okay with one, but I mean, I've just thought that, I don't think we should limit it to living there. Because to your point earlier,
I think we were trying to be overly cautious when we were trying to figure out how to build this for this particular piece, because it is a little unique.
To me, any subcommittee writing anything, I would rather have them put it on the paper and we can remove it, right? I'd rather see more and we can go through it.
Carve it down.
So
piece of
Jack, I'm
marble.
sorry, I didn't want to speak over you. You done?
yeah.
So that was, my point was gonna be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would remove all 5 bullets, the first 5 bullets. So I don't care if they're a person or a trust, I don't care who the trustees are, I don't care if they've got another exception. If the same guy that's building a coffee shop also wants to build a house, I don't care. If it's acting on behalf of a developer, I don't even know what a developer is. I've built houses before, am I a developer?
So let me just say one thing though, Jake. You don't want to have one guy come in and take all 14.
Well, yeah, that's true. Obviously, yeah, you do want to make sure the 14 are distributed fairly. You don't want one developer to come in and take all 14. I do think it would be difficult given that you can't subdivide, so you can't come in with your 40-acre parcel and subdivide it out to 14 lots. But yeah, that should be in there. But then the primary residence one, to Jack's point, I feel like, again, that's not even enforceable, right? I mean, you see it a lot. People are always subdividing their lot and building a house. It's always like for my father-in-law, and then you see it in the market 6 months later. They think they're gonna get points with us where they say that. I don't care what they do with it, build and sell, that's fine.
One thing I want to share with you is not for the moratorium, but for the growth management ordinance, there's actually some really fascinating existing language from some of the others. And one of the things that I read on, it was Hollis's, they basically said, okay, not for the moratorium, this would be for the management ordinance later. It basically, I think they allowed 50 and they said, okay, you can come in, you can get, I think it was 1 or 2, and then you have to wait till Q4, and if at Q4 there's still ones left, you can come back and get the rest of them. So essentially what it did is it tried to make it so it made sure all the individual guys got their stuff, but then at the end, if there was excess, then you could come and take them, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's fair. But not for the moratorium's only a year. This is the pause, but that would be like the next stage.
Cool. I mean, just so we don't miss it, can you scroll to the next page and show the ZBA bullets?
Of course.
We didn't speak about this. I think this is pretty common sense, right? That it has to go through the ZBA, because somebody has to be the arbitrators of this.
Yeah,
right?
and we don't want to be that. It should be the ZBA.
Yeah, it shouldn't be us, and it's more of a ZBA thing. I mean, as long as you guys check that that's legal and that's what people normally do,
That's
good.
standard, yeah.
Yeah, that's standard. Yeah, that should be. I don't want it to be staff. You'd be putting them in a weird spot. I think it should be the ZBA.
It actually would have to be the ZBA, yeah.
And then, I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it. Nobody really jumped at it, but like the 0.25 or 14 units, that's obviously a big number, right? We want to get that number right. I mean, I don't know if we're just good with 14 or if we want to talk about it more, but I think that's something everyone should think about going forward.
So what's interesting, and you're going to laugh, or maybe you won't laugh, but at 0.25 of existing stock, it's actually more legally defensible to do 14 than 28. So what I'm saying is that if you start putting this number at the point where it is going to materially affect you, then the validity of a moratorium starts to go away.
Yeah, you start weakening the whole thing.
Right.
All right, so the appendix talks about, kind of the.
One quick
Go ahead,
question.
go ahead.
On something we might want to consider too is like seasonal home conversions. Does that count as a new home, or is that?
Oh, that's a great question.
Just something.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because that happens a lot.
We have a lot of those, yeah.
And knockdowns. If you're knocking down an existing.
Well, it's interesting, right? And I'm just going to play devil's advocate. If it's an existing house and you knock it down and put another house up, you're kind of net zero. I understand usually they're bigger. But the conversion actually is material, because then that would be adding significant burdens, especially like if you have a family move in.
Yeah, let's put that on the list for sure. That's a good catch.
Good
All right,
catch.
so appendix, do we need to talk about this as a board? This is kind of like the details that this committee's gonna.
I am more than happy to pull up an example or two of what we're at, but I'm just trying to let you know that is an incredibly dense, and it's not, I mean, we need to have that ready for town warrant. So what I'm saying is we got dozens, actually I was showing Greg it the other day, we have dozens of pieces, but they're not.
Well, I mean.
All right,
well, wait a minute.
you want me to
It
pull
obviously
one up?
needs to be ready for town warrant, but it needs to be ready for us to vote, right? We're not gonna vote to put this on town warrant until we have it.
How about I show you one that
Sure,
is
yeah.
been on the, okay, so hold on, I hope I have it here.
In the meantime, Roger?
Yeah, I just put together, I sent out 3 different charts to the planning board and to the subcommittee. One is the budget over the last 10 years. One is the fire department call volume over the last 10 years on a year-to-year basis.
Just in case.
And one is the police department call volume over the last 10 years on a year-to-year basis. So there is also within the town a strategic plan which details what the different department heads think they're going to need based on the existing town structure, which we can tap into because that has a lot of information relative to the fire trucks and the police vehicles and stuff like that. But my point is, and I want to thank the police chief and the fire chief and the town administrator for helping me get this stuff together. But we do have at our disposal, I think, access to a lot of this information.
And I mean, a lot of the nitty gritty of that, right, of the growth plan, like going forward after the moratorium, but the growth management ordinance, you know, is gonna be figuring that out, and that'll be next year, right? So I don't wanna get too far ahead of ourselves, but like, I think it's pretty obvious. It's, if you go to anyone, if you go to the fire or police chiefs, if you go to the school board, if you go to anybody and say, oh, you know, if you had 30% more students, if you had 30% more calls, if you had 30% more whatever,
Because I have.
would that be fine with you, or would you need more money? Like, they all give you the same answer, and I've talked to them. It's always
Yeah, I
yikes,
guess-
you know? So we just need to figure out that and define that and say, how do we manage growth going forward so you don't get overwhelmed?
Yeah, and having authored the impact fees since 1999, you know, and going through like 8 revisions, what I believe you don't want to do is speculate. And I think you have to base all of your assumptions on real data, past
Yeah.
data. And one chart I would like to hold up, which I don't know if you all saw it, which is really disturbing, is the budget over the last 10 years and how that escalated, which is disappointing. But
I'll be ready in 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. All right,
Give me 1 second. 1 second.
While Matt is looking at something,
Sure,
I
Pyle,
just
then
want to
Derek.
say for the appendix, I think we should remove inadequate municipal infrastructure and perhaps get a little more precise. The reason being, and I'm just going to be blunt about it, because we've not welcomed it in the past. The town has been very clear about it. And I think we should just say inadequate utilities or something to that regard, like maybe our strain on the aquifers, use that language instead of saying inadequate municipal infrastructure.
Yeah.
The reason being, sorry, may I?
go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, just one
No, I
one
just
last
wanted to back you
sentence,
up.
and then I'll yield to you. The reason being that this entire thing, the viability, the legality of this is based on our findings. And then we have to make sure that we are building up to, developing our local school system, our public safety and emergency and all of that stuff. I'm just saying we might want to consider putting in a different language on that. But yes, I am very eager to get to see the numbers because those are the determining factor for this moratorium.
All right. I think we're
All right,
finally-
Yeah, I just
Roger,
wanted to
then Derek.
point out that inadequate is a very poor word to put in that because you talk to any one of the department heads and any one of the selectmen, and they'll tell you that if there is something inadequate that we haven't addressed, we should take a look at it. So far as I'm concerned, and the department heads, I don't think anybody considers their department to be inadequate for the existing conditions. Everybody feels it's a safe environment.
good point. Derek?
No, that's a good point. I was just gonna say, we've been doing this for an hour and 25 minutes.
Yeah,
so
we
maybe
gotta get
should-
to it. Yeah,
maybe
we
sit
gotta get to
around.
it. So
All right, let me.
really quickly,
I'm
Matt.
going to be real quick. No, first of all, this is not an end-all, be-all thing. This is an example of data, okay? And so I'm going to tell you right off the bat that when it comes to student enrollment per address, you're never going to see this in a planning board document. We're never going to be listing what kids coming from what address. That is protected. It's illegal. So these numbers are accurate, but they are by development area. And I'm just, so you get what I'm trying to say? Like, we're not going to break down what house in Brookview Road they're from. It's just never going to happen. But
Actually,
that's,
they are in the impact fees, Matt.
the addresses of the students and who's coming to school.
We don't need to talk about that.
All
right, let's
Move
not
on to
get-
something that we care about.
Yeah, all right. So anyways, and once again, I'm just going to say, so all the condos currently in Wyndham, this is real enrollment, 2024, 2025 school year, this is a snapshot, all right? But this is currently what's going on right now. We are at 0.188 kids per condo unit. The official state ratio is 0.06. And I should also say that is kids that are going to public schools. If you start adding in kids going to either the academy or private schools or homeschooled, the number's going up to 0.244. And then if you scroll over here and you look at what they say, it's 0.6 for new construction and 0.14 for any condo. So what I'm trying to show you here is that what we're getting, real numbers in Wyndham, are dramatically different. That's just one type.
Yeah, that's a good point. The point is, people point to Tuscan Village in Salem, they put in thousands of apartments, and it didn't have a huge impact on the schools, because the sort of people that move there are, young professionals that don't have kids. And my counterpoint to that is, if you put a Tuscan Village in Wyndham, people absolutely will move in with kids just because they want to get access to the schools in a way that they can afford it. We're different than other towns in that way. All right, good point, but let's move on.
All right, okay.
So let's open this up to the public. All right, couple ground rules. I always do this when we open up things to the public. So when you come up, there's a microphone there. It should be on. Please say your name and address for the minute taker. We're going to have, everyone's welcome to speak. I'm not going to do a time limit, but please, try not to repeat points that have already been made. If somebody comes up and says exactly what you're going to say, come up and say, I agree with that person. They hit it out of the park, and we'll get the message. We don't need to hear the same thing over and over again. I would also say, apologies, but if you don't live in town, this is for Wyndham residents. If you don't live in town, but you're hired to represent a Wyndham resident or a Wyndham property owner, that's totally fine. Just say who you're representing, right? And what else? Oh, so we do not have a back and forth, right? If somebody comes up there and says something that's deeply offensive to you, write a strongly worded letter later. Don't get into a back and forth with them. We're not going to get into a back and forth with them. We take really good notes. The minute taker does a really good job capturing everything. So we're going to capture what you say, and then we can react to it as a board in the appropriate way. But we're not going to have a debate with people, and we're not going to have back and forths. I think I got it all. All right, so we're open to the public.
Mr. Chair, one
Yeah.
quick point of order, and I think you should do it. There was a letter that came in from the public that the woman requested to have it read. You might want to put that into the record at some point, too.
She can come if she wants it read. Let's go.
All right, fair enough.
Good evening. I'm Simon Balin. I live on Bennington Road here in Wyndham. I think the last chart that was up, before I get into what I want to say, was a great chart. When you're in medical or dental school, one of the first books we read is How to Lie with Statistics. And I think that's an
Closer to the
Can't
mic.
hear you.
Please.
Close to the-
I think it's an excellent book, How to Lie with Statistics, and that last chart really shows us how. I just wonder why over 200 units of condos were exclusively left off the list, and that's just from 5 minutes of my research online. So 3 Church Street, Wyndham Terrace, 23 Mammoth Road, Grace House, 21 Searles Road, 35 North Lowell Road, 37 Searles Road. Those were intentionally left off because these are 55 and over communities and would go against what you're trying to show here. So I don't think the state information is flawed. I think we intentionally chose information here to actually show a worse situation or a sky is falling, which is not actually occurring here. 5 minutes of research, exactly 5. I can go through each and every other 55 and over community and we'll see further information like this. The only 55 and overs that were included were those that actually had any children in the school district. So it's very disturbing that we present this as public information, the very chart that was up there 2 seconds ago. So I'm here as a resident, a taxpayer, and a responsible developer. And there are going to be some difficult truths in what I go over, and I think that was one of the very first difficult truths. I have grave concerns for the way this is being handled. And How to Lie with Statistics is what I think maybe we should all have a copy of. At the corporate level, what I think is going on would be considered fraud. At a political level, it would be considered corruption. So I heard tonight, first we should have a legal review. And you guys had a legal review on this 20 years ago. Bernie said it was an awful idea. And we'll go through why Bernie said it was an awful idea 20 years ago. This is not a good faith effort. We've spoken to each and every single official that was in your reports, police, fire, and our actual conversations, because we're building a 62 and over. So that was actually information the town engineer requested. So we actually have from police and fire what their response times were, and the response times that were quoted today are 3 times what we heard from the horse's mouth. So why would one report say one thing and one other report is 300 times higher, 300% higher? In regards to trips, we said there's traffic, and this is going to somehow hold back traffic. So speaking of 111, which is the worst traffic in Windham, we have 45,000 trips east on 111 per day and 48,000 west per day. In Windham, we have 18,000 residents, 9,000 or less drive a car. The traffic's not coming from Windham. So let's take the problem of traffic that we're going to fix off the list, because we're not building a new highway going where 111 is. So the problem's not coming from Windham, so slowing growth in Windham is not going to fix that. What we're really here for tonight is HB 631. And that's-
Simon,
Yes.
I'm so sorry, but can you just lift it? I feel like I'm going deaf.
I'm struggling
so
to hear
sorry.
you too.
Really? Sorry. Is that better?
That's way better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So HB 631 was passed, and let us be honest, that's the only reason we're here for growth management ordinance or moratorium. The very first planning board meeting after that was passed, we had a planning board member who said that we should change all commercial to industrial. Luckily, Alan laughed at that, because I definitely agree with Alan that some apartments are better than smokestacks. I don't want to see smokestacks in our community. Spot zoning is illegal, and that's what we're trying to do here. Taxpayers will pay tremendously in fees because a moratorium won't hold. We'll go through what it actually takes for a moratorium to hold and how we can actually stop development respectfully. These actions have persisted with Facebook posts that play to the honesty of the situation. It has zero to do with actual growth. The Facebook posts say this is strictly to do with control. They're mad about what's happening at the state level, and control is being taken away from us. So if you're going to post that openly on Facebook, how could you then come here and say there's actually problems with the way things are being, in terms of our municipalities or our fire or police? In terms of legal fees, I think it should be public knowledge how much the planning board actually spends in legal fees to defend themselves on decisions made by the planning board. Not a single line item on the town budget. We only have a single line item, so we can't break it down on the town budget. From there, it should be noted that close to 100% of those cases are lost. Again, I stand here as a concerned resident. I'm a small-time developer building about 100 units a year, and most of those are not here in Windham. I'm the smallest fish in this battle. The issue is this group intends to impose a GMO with a developer that is a multi-billion-dollar developer who has already prepared to litigate, and I hate to present the news, but we will lose that legal battle. Further, when a GMO was considered 20 years ago, the planning board tried the same presentation as we're hearing today, the sky is falling. At that time, it was a business that had locations across state lines, and the town council advised that this breaks federal laws. When you have interstate commerce that's affected by GMO, you will have issues litigating those same issues that you had 20 years ago. And that's why the GMO was dropped 20 years ago. I ask you to reach out to those same planning board members and people who are on the select board, and they'll tell you what happened 20 years ago when this was attempted. Residential units are the ones that issued here. Commercial businesses and businesses with locations in other states will break our legal budgets defending those issues. GMOs must have a plan, and a plan to correct what is actually at issue. We heard water today, so we're on wells. Are we actually talking about bringing water to each and every single house in Windham? Is that what we're going to fix over the next year or 3 years? We're not going to do that, because I was involved in a group. I spearheaded bringing water down 111. We raised $10 million, and it wouldn't cost a dime for any of the taxpayers, and last minute it was squashed by the selectmen. And why was it squashed by the selectmen? Because we're feeding the residents and the voters incorrect information. Somehow a town water line down 111 is going to cause developments like mine, where I have 45 units on a hill. I'm going to now start building 300 units. I have a lot of respect for Carl and Debate Group, and I think all of you do as well. We did our calculations. With a water line, we get 48 units. Without the water line, we get 45. So sky is falling if a water line comes down because we're going to have tremendous more units is a lie. We're on septic in this town, and septic dictates what we can build, not water. So while it would be great to have water, it would help a lot of issues. Now the state, unfortunately, is going to shove it down our throat. The studies are done. The process is starting. My approvals and approvals of neighbors say once the water line is approved, not approved, once the water line is in, we have 60 days to tap in. We've already been reached out, and we know exactly when that water line is going in. So instead of working with us and us paying for it as the developers, now the state's shoving it down our throat, and we have no control over it. I think it was a poor way of planning for the town. In regards to sewer, we don't have sewer here. Are we really going to bring sewer to each and every single house? So it's another non-issue that we're talking about. We do have soil capacity, and we all follow those rules no matter what we're building in this town. In regards to the schools, police, fire, again, we've spoken to the horse's mouth, and none of them agree with the issues here. This is an issue of politics, and at the state level, there's a reason for this GMO. A reason for HB, and it's because of Windham. We were specifically named for a reason, as one of the reasons why this is happening. We need to do things responsibly and not just stop so the state does things that are then out of our control. I agree this is a control issue, but this is not the right way to handle it. How will this affect citizens? And here's the biggest one, taxpayers. So all of what we're trying to get rid of here in terms of commercial would actually be a tax base. I have my assessment recently, I'm sure everybody else here has. Probably even mentioned that you're surprised the house went up to $1 million. We've all seen that. This is only going to cause increase of taxes while decreasing anything that actually produces or provides the tax base. How about Alex Mello, Julie Shea, Keith Maley, George, all the people you see in your planning board office? If you stop construction here for the next year or 3 years, they all have already reported to us that they will be looking for new jobs. They will not be needed. These are people that we know. Realtors in town will have less inventory to sell. It's not a fair way to treat people who have done very well for this town. This will have a continued drastic increase on our tax dollars. The properties that this GMO intends to stop was going to be, I had right of first refusal on that property, which we're not going to name it, but we know what it is. At that time, we had Whole Foods ready to go into the property. I think if you had a town vote, everybody would love to have a Whole Foods in this town. And the tax base that would provide, at that time, we're looking to put 60 units of Whole Foods in some other commercial property. So now we're going back and we're taking out something that would have provided to the tax base, giving us another grocery store, and unfortunately, that developer is probably going to win. GMO leaves single-family houses untouched. So if we know for most towns in New Hampshire, single-family houses, compared to what we pay here in Windham, our tax rate for a single-family house is the highest of almost any other town or city in New Hampshire because we don't have a commercial base. So again, we're trying to limit our commercial base to 5,000 square foot per building. A developer is not going to want to build a 5,000 square foot restaurant because you have nobody who wants a 5,000 square foot restaurant. It doesn't provide enough seats, so they're not going to look to build it. A grocery store is something that other people would want that would provide a lot for the tax base. We're trying to stop, especially we're trying to talk about numbers of 12,000 square feet for a total for a year. We're actually joined tonight on camera, and that's why I brought it up. There are 3 different reporters and a congresswoman watching us. The state puts HB 631 in place because of Windham. The housing courts aren't going to side with us if we don't do this correctly. Moratoriums are overturned all the time, and so are GMOs if they're not done correctly. You have to have an issue, and your year or however many years you have is how you're going to fix those issues. If the issues aren't real, because we present information like this, which takes 5 minutes to disprove, any attorney at the back of this room will destroy this moratorium. I walk a fine line, as I have respect for each and every single one of you on this board. And we do a lot of work here. And I know we make difficult decisions sitting in your seats because we live in this town as well. I'm not an outside developer, and I have a vision of what I want my town to look like. And I tried to build for what I believe the planning board wants because I think that that's the voice of our voters. But if we're trying to lie to our voters to pass certain things or get a seat on the planning board because we're providing misinformation or telling people we're going to be building 300 and 500 unit apartment buildings if we have water when it really only increases 3 units per 12 acres, that's false information, and we shouldn't be doing that. It's easy to stand here and throw punches, but that wasn't all I intended to do. I hope to provide a solution as well. So they say a noble man plants a tree, a seed for a tree that someday will provide shade to somebody he actually will never meet. If you want to slow development, you have to make it painful for the developers. And I've heard it several times today, and the correct way to manage this, and you'll rarely ever hear this from a developer, but you're going to hear it tonight, is increase impact fees to the point where it hurts. And if that's what it takes, that'll stop development. At the same time, it'll add to the tax base to actually fund some of the projects that we're talking about if there actually is a problem. So if we do need a second fire station, which if you've spoken to the fire chief, he does not want a second substation. But if we did need one, where do we get funds? Because the GMO doesn't provide the funds. So now you have to go back to the taxpayers and ask for funds for projects that you're stopping the growth for anyways, but you have to fix it because you said there's a problem with it, but you have no funds for it. So now you go back to the voters. Are they going to vote for something that they don't see a problem with? Or do you increase impact fees and actually get some funds from those developers? And trust me, you can increase them a lot. We'll still develop, but you'll get something out of it. And if it's increased enough to the point where people don't want to develop here, they won't develop here. But if it actually causes issues, you'll have funds to pay for those issues, rather than a bunch of legal fees that are going to be. We see what's those in the know what's happening on 111. I'm not involved with that, but the neighbors are. But we're talking about an 8-figure settlement for something that could have been easily worked around. So I urge the members of this board to do their own research and realize that the information is intentionally cherry-picked in order to lie with statistics. Do not allow corruption to present itself in our small town politics. It will not end well. We might not like HB 631, though an eye for an eye is going to leave this town blind, poor, with unnecessary tax bills for attorneys that we shouldn't be paying for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, whoever's next.
Daniel Snow, 9 Canterbury. A lot of my comments are really focused on what I think a defensible ordinance will contain. I think, can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah,
I
you
think
need to come
I think that's so my main concern is that we have an ordinance that we can defend, because, you know, if we get it wrong and it falls, then it's going to do us no good at all. So, you know, all these details won't matter. So, I think I'll go through these, and I think I sent an email with some of this, so I won't.
I apologize. Yeah, we never have a back and forth. I will comment on this just because I don't want you to be frustrated. Daniel sent me, I don't know if we all got it.
We all saw it. We all
Okay,
saw
good.
it.
So
It was
we
well
do-
written.
We do have that, yeah. We haven't discussed it because I wanted to get through this meeting first.
No,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair. And so I'll try not to go into too much detail, but I do want to hit some of these main points, which is one, I think if you look at Ware as a good example, and that's one of the few that has been fully litigated, their moratorium had, you know, included restricting the acceptance of applications, which I think, you know, I think we should follow that model, because if we don't, applications that are accepted may have vesting, and so then at the end of the moratorium, any new growth management ordinance might not apply because they would have vested. So even if you don't process them, you know, they'd be in the queue, right? So if we want to avoid developers locking in rights prior to a full growth management ordinance, I think we should look at that language. Another one, and I mean, this is obviously already apparent with the comments here, and I think, you know, we know to the extent an ordinance is going to get litigated, and anything we do in response to 631, aside from this, will get litigated in Wyndham, if anywhere. And so one thing I wanted to point out is since Ware was decided, in 2008, some changes were made to RSA 67422 that require competent evidence, which is this is a higher burden than Ware faced in 2004. So, you know, and this kind of speaks to some things that have already been discussed on the board. getting to a point where we have clear, specific, objective, well-defined details about what our things are. And I think structure matters here too, and I'd encourage you to and I know Matt, with all respect, I know you guys looked at a lot of ordinances. Since where's been litigated, you look at how they did it, I think their structure was really good. I liked the way they started out with, here are the findings of fact. This is the situation we're in, and they listed the details. So it was very front and center. Here's what we're doing, and here's why. And then they went into the particulars. So I think that place of prominence is a stronger defense to claims that the evidence is an afterthought. Also would, I don't have enough detail, but I think the Ware example is also pretty instructive on residential, right? If you look at their model was what the average was over the last 10 years. That's the amount of development that they allowed. And so we know that's a defensible standard. And I think, even if you saw in other ordinances that 0.25%, is present, have they been sued? Has it been defended at that level? And I don't know that more restrictive is better in a climate where everyone's clamoring for more housing. And so, we know where was defensible at the level that they set, which, maybe that puts us at 40 or 50 during our moratorium, but it sure beats 15 that we get overruled on. And I worry that a threshold that low gets interpreted as a prohibition. I also think we have a lot of very complicated questions around the exceptions and commercial and the limited, whatever. Like, there's so many details there and so much complexity. I wonder whether we're shooting ourselves in the foot to try to restrict so much, so broadly. I mean, we don't get a lot of commercial development in this town. I think if we were keeping our restriction on dwelling units, and so that covers, it's single family, it's multifamily, we've got a threshold and a clear process for how we decide who gets to pick from that queue. I think that might be easier to defend than a lot of weird carve-outs and a lot of complexity. It may also be easier to get people on board with. I encourage you to look at what I said. I've got some other points that I think are probably less important, and a lot of people probably want to weigh in here, so I won't take more of your time. I direct you to my written comments for more detail. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. John LaRiviere, 47 North Lowell Road. All of the comments tonight are around the question of how to tweak this ordinance and what changes could be made to this ordinance. I don't hear any discussion as to whether or not the town should have this ordinance. We hear about House Bill 631 and all of the issues that causes for the towns. The reason we have House Bill 631 is because planning boards across the state have done everything they can to stop and eliminate growth for 4 decades. And the actions of not this planning board, but planning boards statewide collectively brought us 631. And that's why this board is having this conversation this evening. From 1980 to 2000, the state, and I'm off the top of my head, but the numbers were on permits, about 12,000 permits a year statewide. From 2000 to 2010, it was about 7,000. Since 2010, it's around 5,000. So we're collectively building 40% as many houses as we built in the 2 decades prior to the turn of the century. And we seem to manage the growth then off of a much smaller base of population than we have today. those are conversations that should go to the question of, should we have this ordinance? And what is, Wyndham's responsibility to the 20,000 housing units shortage that is regularly reported in the state of New Hampshire? My specific question in my own interest this evening is, does the board intend to make provisions under RSA 674-39, which provides for a 5-year exemption on recently approved subdivisions, because we've relied upon and spent millions of dollars in reliance upon the planning board saying, okay, you're good to build this. The state provides a 2-year exemption to get started, and as long as you get substantially started within that 2-year time frame, it extends out to 5 years.
Actually, 7 now.
And, well, there's talk of 7. I don't believe it's passed unless it's very recent. So certainly, you can't have developers that have already invested millions of dollars into a project be told, we're sorry we told you you could build this, but we changed our mind. There's going to be certainly litigation under those circumstances, probably from a number of developers in the state. So the board should certainly consider exemptions under RSA 674-39. Beyond that, what are you really accomplishing with a building permit moratorium? We understand you want to stop new development. These items have already been approved. The town, in theory, has already planned for this growth. New things that aren't in the door yet is a separate item. But the lots that already exist in this town, to go to those people and say they can't build on them now when they're paying tax on them, and they've paid tax on an empty lot for 20 years that never had a kid in the school system, and all of a sudden they're gonna put a kid in the school system, and they're told, yeah, sorry, we can't handle the cost of that extra kid now. You didn't have a problem taking property taxes on a piece of property that didn't have a student and was an empty piece of land. So those are all considerations that I'm hoping this board considers on top of the fact that your school population has grown by ballpark 100 people in the last decade. I don't call that explosive growth. Towns got to be able to plan for that level of growth. So you're talking about the potential of future growth, but you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater on everything in this town that's been approved before today. And I think there needs to be serious consideration for the people that have been taxpayers, are taxpayers, and have had significant financial commitments based on the actions of this planning board to be honored in what they were told they could do without having that rug pulled out from under them. And from that standpoint, I'll leave it at that, but those are certainly considerations. And the discussion before tweaking what the ordinance should look like should be surrounded around what are we accomplishing? Because all you're going to get is a rush of building permits now and a rush of building permits in 12 months. You're going to get essentially what you were going to get on top of a whole bunch of litigation and significant costs to the town in order to get a year. Take time and do active planning and make your changes over the course of that year. You're getting 50 permits a year. Issue the 50 permits that you're going to do and plan for the next year. Stopping the growth isn't going to stop it from happening. It's going to accelerate it and it's going to delay it, but it's not going to stop it. And it's going to have a significant cost to the town for that 12-month delay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sean Dunphy. I'm an attorney from Cronin, Bisson, and Zielinski in Manchester. I'm here tonight on behalf of Wyndham resident Jerry Beek. I'll try to be quick because a lot of the issues that I planned on raising were already discussed by the prior speakers, but I'd just like to point the board back to RSA 674-23, which states that you have to describe the unusual circumstances that justify the ordinance. Tonight, we've heard a lot of hypotheticals and conjecture about potential problems that it sounds like people believe exist, but as was noted by the prior speakers, the evidence doesn't back that up. I know there was some discussion about the police and fire, but I would like to also point the board to your own school district website, which has a New England School Development Council study, which shows that your students are projected to decrease over the next couple of years. And for the most part, it's stayed relatively the same. And I understand there's concerns about 30% increases, 40% increases. That again is hypotheticals that I don't think justify this type of substantial ordinance moratorium. And in addition, the water concerns, I've heard some discussions tonight about how this board and the town has stopped potential water options. And I would just ask, if this goes forward, is there a plan to allow municipal water to come in and some of those plans to come to fruition? And basically, a lot of the issues tonight sounds like things that other towns are dealing with at this point, other towns and cities that aren't actually unusual circumstances. And I'll just end by citing to one of the moratorium statutes that have been cited to tonight. I believe it was Brookline. I don't remember which member brought it up, but if you Google that issue, this happened in around 2024. The Brookline voters had to approve a $610,000 settlement based on that moratorium because a developer sued, and I think tonight it was said that that wasn't brought to conclusion. It was, and that it didn't go well for the town. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Panciaco. I'm here on behalf of Woodside. Backing up a bit, I'd like to know if and when the planning board officially made a motion to form this growth management subcommittee. I've scoured all the minutes from 2025 and found nothing, but to form a subcommittee under the planning board, you need a formal motion and approval by the board for it to even exist. A subcommittee also is subject to RSA 91A. I scoured the calendar today. I found no notices of the meetings with this short list of what occurred. No names, who said what, who provided information. Basically cut and paste of 3 meetings that were not noticed to the public. Nobody told us where they would take place, and that this discussion was open to the public as it should have been, in direct violation of your own rules. I also would like to ask, who is and you don't have to tell me who it is, but is there an impartial fact finder generating these spreadsheets with these numbers you're putting up on the screen? To be truthful, I have to agree with many of the prior speakers. This is all about House Bill 631. It's about exclusion. And I wonder, have anybody looked into the insurance coverage that might be available if you adopt an ordinance like this on misinformation? I think a prior speaker has brought up there's a lot of approved projects in this town. Do you realize how many people this moratorium would put out of work? What about the people who own the land and are paying interest to the bank? Are you going to forgive their property taxes while you get your facts together? Because I've seen no evidence here tonight. Looking at the schools and following Attorney Dunphy. Since 2018, the school population has been steady or declining. It's not busting at the seams. Brief research today online gave me the annual growth rates. Wyndham is net zero. That's what it says. So it may be slightly more than that, but not much. It's closer to zero. Derry, 0.36 per year. Pelham, 0.22. Salem is 2.67. Chester, 1.17. Has this board considered the impact on all these abutting towns if you shut down Wyndham, build the moat, and pull up the drawbridge? How that will impact all the other municipalities? Just a few additional details. And since you have relied upon the Ware case in 2004, and the language has changed, you have to include a statement of the circumstances, not what might happen in the future. Oh, the budget went up because more people moved in town. They're actually paying more. That's why the budget might have gone up. That's why things cost a little more. But back to Ware. If you just Google it, you'll find their 2005 master plan. They did not have a capital improvements plan like Wyndham at all when they adopted their moratorium in 2003, 2004, and it went to the Supreme Court. And very few of the facts of why they did that appear in the opinion. Did you know that the reason they adopted it is because they had 998 vacant building lots just waiting for building permits? They had approved subdivisions for an additional 80 lots. And their schools were old. Their town hall was built in the 1800s. They had no impact fees, no plans, like no capital improvement plan. Wyndham has all of these. Your master plan was just updated. You spent a lot of time on it, sanitizing it so it didn't look like you needed workforce housing. They repealed their moratorium in 2008. It didn't last long because they pulled the facts and evidence together and made a plan. What I'd like to see here is some hard evidence of the unusual circumstances this group feels exists in the town that require putting people out of work and putting builders in bankruptcy. Thank you.
Shane Gendron, 24 Bridge Road. I just wanted to echo some of what other people have said here tonight. And I think all of you are aware that, my office represents developers here in town. And obviously we have an interest, but we also have 5 employees that rely on a job every day. They want to get paid to be able to feed their kids and feed their families. Yes, we rely on Wyndham. We've served Wyndham since 1962, my office. But I had my office spend a little bit of time in the last 2 weeks looking through data. It's not hard. We can look through annual reports to see that our building permits haven't increased. We can see that our call data hasn't really increased. And of course, growth is going to make some things increase, budgets and whatnot, but every town has growth. I think what we're looking at this evening is a knee-jerk reaction to House Bill 631, and it's something that hasn't even happened or is going to take effect until July 26, if I'm correct. I think there's time for this board to look at things that they can do that can focus on House Bill 631 without affecting every project that's come before this town in the last couple of years but hasn't been built out, or projects that are in the works that meet the zoning requirements of this town. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Don't be shy. And if folks want to queue up on this hallway, that's pretty common in these sort of meetings. It saves a little bit of time, too.
Cynthia Finn. Full disclosure, I'm a member of the Wyndham School Board. I just need to clarify some information, okay? The information that our school district has declining enrollment is not accurate information. And those of you who know me know that I get and delve into the NSDEC numbers. And 2 data points on a NSDEC enrollment report does not mean that there's a trend. I'm just going to give you some numbers. In 2004, we had 2,412 students in our district. In 2014, 10 years later, we had 2,857 students in our district. And everybody knows what happened after that. In 2024, we have 2,933 students in our district. So we have gained in a decade 521 students. That is more students than we have in center school. It's more students than we have in the middle school, okay? We have been steadily growing. In the fall of 2024, we had 3,016 students in our district. We have not had a steady decline in our schools. In 2018, we built a pre-K through 4 elementary school, which was completed in 2020. That school immediately filled up. And currently, class sizes in that school are either at or above the recommended class sizes that we agreed upon in our 2018 CBA with our teachers, okay? So now, we have 2 data points. We have the NSDEC numbers from the spring of 2024, and we have the NSDEC numbers for, we have the NSDEC numbers for the fall of 2024, and we have the NSDEC numbers for the spring of 2025. Those 2 data points make it look like our enrollment is leveling off. Even if our enrollment is leveling off, and it is because it's dropping down in the high school, that doesn't mean that it's leveling off at Golden Brook and at center school and at middle school, because our K through 8 enrollment is not really leveling off yet. We have those 2 data points that we're looking at. We wanted to be prepared because the last time we had a giant bubble in several grades go through our district, we all know that we had children learning in hallways. We had children learning in custodial closets, and we had a severe overcrowding problem with over 760 to 770 kids in our middle school. As a school district, we are not Chicken Little, and we don't run around saying the sky is falling. We look at our numbers, and facts don't lie. So what we have been doing is following